Hey everyone, and welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined today by Andre Seegers and John Cartwright to discuss our first look at the PS5 in action thanks to the new Unreal Engine 5 and its actual demo. It's called Lumen in the Land of Nanite, and it is a real-time demo running live on the PlayStation 5, as we just said. Basically, the entire point of the demo is to show off the two core technologies that will debut in Unreal Engine 5, and that's Nanite, which is a geometry artist tool, basically making things look really nice and using apparently tons of triangles, billions of triangles that they mentioned in this demo, along with Lumen, which is a fully dynamic global illumination solution that immediately reacts to scene and light changes. Basically, we got a brand new lighting engine and a brand new geometry engine that looks pretty good, and honestly it seems to be much more useful in the developer side of things, in the fact that it seems to be a lot easier than what came before. And that seems to be the big selling point here with Unreal Engine 5, is just it's much easier for developers. At least that's what they're kind of presenting here. The demo itself, though, is all gameplay. It's not a real game. It's just sort of showing everything off. And honestly, I think we're all kind of in agreement because we watched it together. I think we preferred this to the Xbox showcase.
There was definitely more gameplay for a game that doesn't exist than the entirety of the Xbox Series X showcase. Yeah, so this actually gave us like an idea of what to expect from a game from next gen, even if it is a demo, and even though it was presented as a game, it had seemingly gameplay. Of course, it's not a game, so it's impossible to say, fully how accurate this is. But it gave us what seems like our first like real taste of what we can expect from at least the PS5. And I think right now, I don't want to put too much fuel in the console wars because this engine is obviously multi-platform. But when it comes to perception, right now I think Sony's probably gonna take the lead with this, just because this looked good and last week's event was super boring. But again, this is a game that doesn't actually exist. It doesn't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, you're right, but it sucks to say that because this isn't anything, and it's also going to be on Xbox, as you said as well. So it being a point in Sony's favor is super weird. But it's right. It's the first time you've properly seen next-gen gameplay in action, at least that's how I feel. Because we had the Series X event last week, but we didn't really see any gameplay, and I have no idea of how Series X games actually run, whereas I kind of have an idea of how PlayStation 5 games will now.
At least it seems like we do, right? And that's what matters more than anything for marketing, is the perception of it. Mm-hmm. People are now going to be expecting PS5 games to look like this demo did, and maybe they will, maybe they won't, we don't know for sure, but right now, this is kind of exciting. Like, this is the first time when I saw something, I'm like, okay, I see where next gen is going. Like, with the the gameplay reveal last week, it didn't really do anything to show me like why I needed a Series X. But now that we see this, it's like, okay, I'm seeing the upgrade here.
Yeah, and I don't really think I got that feeling with the Unreal Engine 4 demo, which was basically this lava pit showing this giant monster, and it looked cool, but it was also cinematics. Like, usually tech demos are like grass growing in real time, or walls having all these details on them, or just stuff that's never going to happen.
Or 100 Marios running around.
Yeah, but with this, it looked like a game. It looked like there were actual moments where they're controlling the character, and it seemed like stuff that might even happen in a game. And they even had tropes of the last generation, which I hope aren't in this generation. Like, there's a point when you're squeezing through a wall, which is used excessively this gen to hide load screens.
Right.
But a big point of this gen is there won't be that many load screens, so that was kind of weird to have in there.
Yeah, it's I guess trying to push the idea that it is gameplay, but it is funny that we're so like, okay, we got an idea of what next gen graphics are going to be, and yes, this is running on the PS5, but the funny thing about Unreal Engine 5 is that it's going to be available on every console, basically everything out there. It's going to be on all current generation consoles, next generation consoles, PC, Mac, iOS, and Android, which means Unreal Engine 5 can be used on the Switch as well. So it's kind of funny in that way that we're all impressed like that. But of course, PS5 is able to more fully take advantage of this new engine. But it is just a matter of that perception. So
yeah, but this demo would not run on the Switch.
No.
Just because Unreal Engine 5 can run on the Switch doesn't mean anything can. Fortnite is on mobile. That runs on Unreal Engine 4. It depends how dynamic your game is, I suppose, but it's great for developers. They can stick with this one engine and have it work across so many platforms. But that's really exciting for what games might be coming in the future.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's the fact that this will make it easier. You know, if you're making a game for next gen, it should also theoretically be able to work on current gen hardware to some degree. It'll just probably look way worse. So yeah, that is neat, especially with the the cross-gen approach we're already seeing coming up, at least, or especially with the Series X, where for the first 2 years, I think every title will work across both generations, or every first-party title, I believe is what they said, if I remember correctly. So that's encouraging to see, even if it means I don't think we'll be seeing games anywhere close to this running on the Switch anytime soon. Maybe its successor, we'll see. But yeah, getting back to what you were saying, John, about how it has some tropes from the current generation, it is interesting how the demo definitely started off more of it had more of a linear look to it, something akin to maybe Uncharted. But then toward the end, it really opened up when it went to the openish looking world, and the character dives out and is just zooming across the landscape at incredible speed. Which is pretty impressive, I would think, considering it has to load, it's presumably loading all those assets in real time. And I was just thinking the entire time, it's man, I want flying Breath of the Wild 2 to feel like this, where you're gliding at, like Superman speed across the landscape. It'll be so fun, because it seemed to be incorporating a physics-based element too, where the character's running along at certain points, to interact with the environment and maintaining speed. And it just looked like a really fun showcase, and again, even though this game doesn't exist, I really wish it did. I could see, I would love if they, going off the feedback to this trailer, assuming it's positive, I haven't looked anywhere else, would they actually turn this into a proper game, or used as a basis for a proper game?
I hope they do. If Epic just does Fortnite forever, I'd be quite sad, but this looks legitimately fun. Though, I gotta say one thing though, do you get a feeling of diminishing returns with this? Because I think this generational jump is probably going to be less distinguishable than prior ones, and that's just the way technology goes. But I will say the development tools definitely look far more agile here. If you take some of the best looking games of this generation, like The Last of Us Part 2 or Ghost of Tsushima, and compare them to this, I don't think the jump looks massive. But then you also got to consider that I'm sure those games take a bunch of shortcuts. They bake in lighting, they have to hide their load points, whereas this seems far more friendly. And I suppose we'll probably get more games looking like those top-tier graphical games than we do this generation. Because it seems to make things just a lot easier to develop for people.
Yeah, according to their website, they have a little bit more text here about their systems. So Nanite virtualized micropolygon geometry frees artists to create as much geometric detail as the eye can see. Nanite virtualized geometry means that film quality source art comprising hundreds of millions or billions of polygons can be imported directly into Unreal Engine, anything from ZBrush sculpts to photogrammetry scans to CAD data, and it just works. Nanite geometry is streamed and scaled in real time, so there are no more polygon count budgets, polygon memory budgets, or draw count budgets. There is no need to bake details to normal maps or manually author LODs, and there is no loss in quality. So yeah, what you were saying, John, is pretty much spot on. They don't have to do all these shortcuts or workarounds in order to keep that quality. It's in there, and it has what it needs.
There's a very exciting thing in there, being able to import film assets. Imagine licensed games, you can just import the model of a CG film. Like if they do Into the Spider-Verse 2, which they are doing. Imagine they just import all of the models of the Spider-Man. That would be so awesome.
That's so interesting too, because we've seen the Unreal Engine is now being used in actual TV, at least TV-based productions, with it being used heavily in Mandalorian for the landscape. So imagine there's a Mandalorian game, you can just pull in those raw assets, presumably, and make use them in your game, and it would look true to life or true to the screen or the TV show.
They could have a Mario tie-in game for the movie and just use the actual assets from the movie.
Exactly. On PS5.
On PS5 exclusive.
Sure. Yeah, it really does seem like something that players might not notice as much. It's still I have Final Fantasy VII on the brain, and that game looked phenomenal, except in certain places. So that might get rid of those rough spots. Maybe we won't have low quality doors anymore. that sort of thing. Maybe it'll actually some of the backgrounds will pop a little bit better this time around. But it still goes to show this is just sort of getting rid of those rough patches rather than being just a big leap forward. And I almost wonder if that's more props to the developers now finding those shortcuts and making those shortcuts work so that we don't sense as much of a difference this time around.
Absolutely. I suppose if they're not taking all these shortcuts, then development times might get shorter. But I also guess because there's more detail, they'll probably get longer and more expensive as well. An exciting thing as well, though, is I believe you said earlier, Derek, that you can take Unreal Engine 4 games and continue them on Unreal Engine 5. And with the Final Fantasy VII Remake being built on Unreal Engine 4, I wonder if they can just literally remaster Part 1 and bring it to Unreal Engine 5 and continue working on the rest of the series in this new engine as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a thing here where they say, we're designing for forward compatibility so you can get started with next-gen development now in UE4 and move your projects to UE5 when ready.
That's big. That's really big. So many games this generation run on Unreal Engine 4. The vast majority of AAA games, I'd say. So it's crazy that they can just continue working on those games in 5, especially because 5's not launching until next year. So the majority of launch titles won't be using this engine, but developers can start working on their games now and just tidy them up as they go along in 5.
There were other little touches too. They added to the demo, such as the character dynamically pressing against the wall as they pass through a doorway. And I do wonder if it might be more in the little touches that we start to appreciate next gen more, perhaps more than in the greater macro sense. So it's difficult to say exactly how much that's going to add, but to address your question from a while ago, John, yeah, I mean, nothing in here blew my mind as we've seen, in past generations, but even the previous generation didn't blow my mind either at the start. So while I was impressed by what I saw here, I think we are past the point of being blown away by demonstrations of graphical prowess, and it's going to come down entirely to how developers use that power to make compelling gameplay experiences. And that's actually the thing that I enjoyed the most about this, is that they presented the demo in a way or in a fashion that I actually wish I could play it. And I can't, and that bums me out still.
That wall-touching thing is something Nathan Drake does in Uncharted 4. So I guess as we keep iterating on, they're just kind of taking these things that only the top developers can do at the moment, and they're giving these tools to everyone, which should make games just generally more exciting.
It kind of reminded me of two things. Half-Life Alyx recently did a really good job of having your hands interact with things around the environment. Perhaps not quite as well as we saw it there, but this is a demo, so I wouldn't account that for anything. But Half-Life Alyx did a good job. But you know what it reminded me specifically of? Is how, especially in Nintendo games, or at least I know so most of Nintendo games, is when you're standing on an uneven surface, your character's legs actually adjust to the terrain. And that's something that's happened, I'm sure it happens in every game now, but I know so mostly in Nintendo, because Ocarina of Time started that, and I'm pretty sure Nintendo's still using basically the same code for it, because it looks the exact same in Animal Crossing these days, too. So for whatever reason, that just came to mind as watching this.
It's interesting you mentioned just making it easier for developers that aren't in the upper echelons with tons of money to be able to do those little touches that Uncharted 4 had, John, because they also have a point here on their website where they say that the first $1 million in game revenue will be waived. So any royalties that you would have to pay for Unreal Engine 5 are waived until you make over $1 million in gross revenue. And it's kind of nice for the little guys. I think that gives a lot of opportunities, and they'll spread it out and maybe get more of these games spread around it. I mean, it's also a brilliant tool to actually get people using Unreal Engine 5, but...
Yeah, that's probably it. Make it free now, then charge later.
You get that first hit.
Yeah, but no, I mean, yeah, that's for right now, if that sounds like a great deal. That's going to be perfect for indie developers to get started. Because $1 million is generally pretty, most companies would consider that a success. So yeah, not having to pay royalties up until that point, hey, that's pretty exciting. So, and that'll definitely help with the adoption of this, for sure. Not that I think they'd have any problems before, but it would definitely help speed it up even more so.
I know 3 words to get Derek excited. Dragon Quest 12.
Oh, man.
So 11 uses Unreal Engine 4. Imagine 12 with all these little touches, without all those load screens. This could be an amazingly beautiful game.
Oh, yeah. Get that... Get more stylized stuff rather than go with realistic, and it could be incredible. There's just, which of course, I've said a few times how I want to see a Chrono Trigger remake in the same way as Dragon Quest 11. Okay, Dragon Quest 12, we can do that too. That's fine with me.
That's actually you actually kind of bring up a good point, John. In that, Derek, I think maybe I'm wrong, so tell me if I'm mischaracterizing what you said earlier. But it seemed like you were the one who were perhaps least impressed by the leap here, but when I think of Dragon Quest now, I'm like, this is a massive step up from Dragon Quest, even putting aside the art style. So if we had a Dragon Quest game that looked akin to this, yeah, would that kind of blow your mind, you think? Or?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard because it has that point of realism that it sort of blends together for me, but when you have that more style idea and see those details and be able to walk around and see certain things, I think that's when it really pops, at least in my head, because I'm not a technical person in the slightest. They were pointing out these terms, I'm like, I have no idea what they're saying. They might as well be speaking a foreign language. They could have been.
Triangles.
Yeah, triangles. I heard triangles a lot, and billion, so I was like, okay, I might have an idea. But yeah, it's those stylized looks because, Wind Waker still looks gorgeous, but look how much they improved Wind Waker to Wind Waker HD and go even further beyond that with something like using this system and having that more cel-shaded look a la Dragon Quest 11. There could be some really impressive stuff out there, and just I'd love to see what developers can come up with. Mm-hmm.
I keep coming back to Dragon Quest 11 because that game is beautiful, right? But there's also some shortcomings. It loads a lot. There's pop-in, and I'm just imagining all of that, but just seamlessly running from area to area, and then having all these lighting effects. Like you cut a slime in half, and they burst into like 100 different bits of blue blobs. I think this could be a really stunning leap.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hope. Like, the hope is that this is an actual representation of the games we'll be playing. Perhaps not at launch, but at some point. It's difficult to I don't want to go too hard in on that because obviously this is a demo. Everything is crafted and showcasing this engine in the best possible light. It's not having to run any actual several gameplay systems, whether it be weather or AI, for instance. It's a very carefully constructed world. I'm sure if you move the camera just a tiny bit, we'd see nothing beyond the perimeter of what we saw here. There's nothing out there. So yeah, that's the thing. Like, just how representative is this? And we just can't say for sure right now. But the hope is that it is, and that we'll see games of this caliber. If not, this turned into an actual game. They really want to fly like the character does here.
Well, then they mentioned Horizon at the end of this is running off PS5. Is this like a stealth Horizon 2 showcase? But yeah, you did mention the light, John, and that is the other half of this UE5 demonstration, which is Lumen. And again, according to the blurb on their website, it says, it's a fully dynamic global illumination solution that immediately reacts to scene and light changes. The system renders diffuse inner reflection with infinite bounces and indirect specular reflections in huge, detailed environments at scales ranging from kilometers to millimeters. Artists and designers can create more dynamic scenes using Lumen, for example, changing the sun angle for time of day, turning on a flashlight, or blowing a hole in the ceiling, and indirect lighting will adapt accordingly. Lumen erases the need to wait for light map bakes to finish and to author light map UVs, a huge time savings when an artist can move a light inside the Unreal editor, and lighting looks the same as when the game is run on the console. So, I mean, again, ease of developer use, it seems to be the big thing here, but the thing that kind of stuck out to me while reading that is blowing a hole in the ceiling, which just made me think of this kind of more stylized action game, third-person shooter, first-person shooter, whatever, and going back to, Red Faction, where you could blow holes in the wall and have that, but have it more granular, where you're shooting bullets through like a wooden plank, and it's dark except for on the other side, and you can see the light pouring in as you shoot the plank, and it just reveals more and more light. And I think that would be that little touch that would really sell this being next gen.
Yeah, things of that nature would actually be awesome in VR too, like where you could even peer through the holes, for instance, that you create to see what's on the other side.
Oh, yeah. Imagine like Resident Evil 8 like that.
Oh god.
This kind of thing sounds stunning, and we do sometimes see this in current gen games, but it's almost always baked. Like when Nemesis goes through a wall in Resident Evil 3, that's just scripted. He can't just dynamically do that. But having these just dynamic elements happening in real time, that could really change how games work.
Yeah, I mean, part of it too is it's not even just like limitations of current game engines, which I'm sure is part of it, but also like just in a gameplay sense. Like, how does this change a game if you just blow apart this wall right here? Is that gonna fundamentally, is that even playable at that point, right? So, or you can destroy any wall or any surface, or to whatever extent they're looking. So yeah, that's where that's where you can sometimes butt up against game design.
It was time to bring back Blast Core from the N64.
Yes! Open world Blast Core game. Give it to me. I want that in my veins. We can have that giant rocket pack robot fly like the girl does here. That'd be amazing.
Hell yeah.
Oh my god.
I'm all in.
Yeah, I like it. But yeah, it's that kind of stuff. Like, I think having these abilities and keeping things simpler might just open up ideas for what they can do now. Like, they had these ideas that maybe they've had for a while that they've wanted to try, but they couldn't, and now they have the opportunity. And I think that could be pretty exciting for next-gen stuff. Because, compare beginning of console life to end of console life for any system, there's a major difference.
Just look at, The Last of Us just came out toward the end of the PS3 and how it basically worked just fine as a PS4 title, just by being upscaled a bit. I mean, it looked a little bit dated, but it still holds up pretty remarkably well. Although, but for comparison, then you look at Last of Us 2, it's like, oh man, that is a pretty big jump. So, I guess my point is I'm excited to see what Naughty Dog can do with power at this level.
Or Insomniac, or name studio here.
Yeah, I mean, when you look for Naughty Dog's limitations, you can absolutely see them. There are so many points where you give a character a boost when you squeeze through a wall, and I'm imagining a Naughty Dog game just without that clutter and just a constant seamless world. That could be really exciting. It's also harder to sell though. Like, when you watch a trailer for The Last of Us, you don't see that stuff. Mm-hmm. And when we watch like a trailer for a next-gen game, how do they convey that scale without just being like, oh, there's no more of this stuff?
I mean, that is kind of perhaps one of the most exciting things about next-gen is I think something that's getting overlooked is, it's going to have faster loading, but what that'll enable, because that should theoretically, as you've been touching on, cut out those like forced, segments where they hide the loading screens, where you're giving a character a lift or going through a narrow passageway. So yeah, I'm just excited to see how that comes out through gameplay.
Yeah, and like as a Nintendo example as well, the Wind Waker was sort of crippled by its limitations of loading.
Exactly. I say that game arguably has the worst load times of any game ever, because it's like 5 minutes between islands, so...
And they doubled that on the Wii U, but imagine how much further they could go with this. Like a rocket-propelled boat, just going the entire way through the ocean in seconds.
Love it. That'd be great. Actually, you actually just reminded me of, in Breath of the Wild, you can do some crazy physics stuff where you just send Link flying across the world at record speed. And it was so fast the game couldn't keep up. So when you would actually hit a loading zone where the game just freezes completely for like 10 seconds maybe, as it has to load the next chunk, which is something you would never actually normally see during gameplay, but it actually would crop up during some of those physics, during some of those weird physics moments. So
yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how Nintendo use this, because they do use Unreal Engine 4. Not very often, but Yoshi's Crafted World uses that engine.
Good point.
So I do wonder if they'll adopt this. The jump won't be as big to Switch, but it's still going to be a jump from 4 to 5.
Oh, those materials are going to look amazing in the next Yoshi game.
Oh yeah, because they could probably just scan the materials in as is.
Yeah, right.
Now I'm just imagining like a Kirby game done like, Rainbow Curse? Except with actual clay. But, any other thoughts on Unreal Engine 5 and technically PlayStation 5 gameplay?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of it. Like, it's not gameplay, but it kind of felt like it. And that is what's kind of exciting. I mean, the fact we're even discussing this tells you that this is something, somewhat meaningful. Because we normally wouldn't address an Unreal demo. But here we have what is our, essentially our first look at PS5 gameplay. And again, we don't want to extrapolate too much from it because we don't fully know how it will look in an actual game. But it has me at least interested now. Like, PS5 is now in the conversation, whereas it wasn't so much before. So, and things are only going to be ramping up from here with, again, the launch happening later this year, which is kind of wild to me. It still doesn't quite feel like it, but hey, Sony says it's still on, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first tangible next-gen feeling. We saw like 12 next-gen games last week, and I can't even fathom how I feel about them, because I barely know them. And it's very rare that a tech demo is running on a console. Like, when Unreal Engine 4 was revealed, it was just that you had to assume it was running on the highest rig PC out there, getting the most out of the engine it could, whereas this is showing us what games could actually look like. And that's exciting. So, yeah, I guess we've got to be like cautiously optimistic about this, but I'm excited for what's possible with the next generation of games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of where I fall on this. Is like I can kind of see where it's going, and I like the potential, but I'm looking forward to some actual games running on this. And I mean, again, this is the most game-like we've gotten, but let's see what actually can be done with it, and let's see those launch titles to see if it convinces me to get a PlayStation 5. At least right away.
I'm paused on a scene right now where the character is climbing up like the mountain wall or the cliff wall. And I've been playing a lot of Breath of the Wild recently. And man, the difference is night and day between the two cliff faces here. Like, it could not be more pronounced.
There is one trope in there though, where there's like a coloured like bit of paint that they're climbing, so it's not quite freeform climbing like in Breath of the Wild though.
That's true. That's a good point. The scale is still not quite at Breath of the Wild levels, which is impressive to say. Breath of the Wild's a credit.
Alright, well I think that covers it for our Unreal Engine 5 reveal discussion, so thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, and of course be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Unreal, Next Gen, PlayStation 5, Xbox, Nintendo, all that, and other things gaming as well. Until next time, bye.